Hey folks, my name is Nick Drake. I'm the pastor of Richland Baptist Church here in Kingdom City. And I want to share with you something that really kind of challenged and convicted me this morning. We do try to do this daily video during this COVID-19 pandemic just to kind of encourage you, stay connected with our church family, remind you to continue to prioritize what's important, and that's our relationship with God first and foremost, and loving and serving those around us. I was really challenged this morning in reading in 2 Kings chapters 18 and 19 about King Hezekiah, who the Bible has a lot to say about in good things, talking about King Hezekiah, how there was no one before him or after him like him, and how he obeyed the Lord, which is pretty high praise considering King David who was before him, and it even talks about him walking in the ways of King David. If you read the beginning of 2 Kings chapter 18, it's almost like King Hezekiah was reading Psalm 1 and living according to Psalm 1, which of course David wrote, is a great psalm of how to live our lives, regardless of how those around us are living, how to live our lives, not walking in the counsel of the wicked or standing in the path of sinners or sitting in the seat of scoffers, but delighting yourself in the law of the Lord. And so you see that in Hezekiah's life. But what really challenged me this morning was 2 Kings chapter 19. And at the beginning of the chapter, or right at the end of chapter 18, you see this incredible threat by the Assyrians, who were extremely powerful, much more powerful from a worldly perspective than Israel was. And yet, when you get to chapter 19, you see right away when Hezekiah hears about this threat, here's what the king of Assyria is saying. And of course, the Assyrians had just taken over nation after nation, and no one was able to stop them. And so now they're threatening God's people who Hezekiah was ruling over as king. And Hezekiah immediately, it says, he heard their report, he tore his clothes, covered himself with sackcloth, and went into the Lord's temple. And then later, a few verses later, it says that perhaps the Lord your God will hear all the words of Rabshakeh, whom his master the king of Assyria sent to mock the living God, and will rebuke him for the words the Lord your God has heard. Therefore offer a prayer for the surviving remnant. And so Hezekiah is encouraging the people, specifically here the prophets of God, the people of God, to pray. And so that was Hezekiah's first response. In the midst of all of this terrible threat against his livelihood, against his life, against his people's lives, he wanted them to pray. That was his first response. And I'm reminded right now, because so often I think we look at prayer as a last resort. We look at prayer as, oh, there's nothing else to do, so at least we can pray, or all you can do is pray. And it's really a terrible thing to say, all you can do is pray, because that's the most important thing we can do is pray. That's not, and I've thought about this in preparing for my message this coming Sunday morning, and I was going to mention, I'm not even sure who originally said it, but I've heard it said so many times, and I think it's so true. You know, that prayer isn't it's not preparing us for the greater task. You know, prayer is the greater task. Prayer doesn't prepare us for some more important ministry. Prayer is the important ministry. And so I was challenged in reading this, because so often I find myself, and maybe you see yourself this way too, not praying as a first resort. Not going to God first, kind of going to God when everything else fails, or praying when we don't know what else to do. And of course, in those times we should pray too, but we should always be prayerful. We should always be bringing our requests before the Lord. Just like Philippians 4 says, don't worry about anything, but in everything through prayer and petition, let your requests be made known to God. With thanksgiving, let your requests be made known to God. And so I'm reminded in Hezekiah's life that right now, in the midst of this pandemic, how often have I cried out to God for his mercy and his grace and his help, his forgiveness, instead of trying to figure out in my own wisdom or in the church's wisdom, what can we do to remedy this, or how can we make sure that people are being taken care of, or, thinking that we can somehow come up with all the plans. We need to pray. We need to continually seek God in prayer and rely upon him. And so I want to encourage you. I'm not going to pray on the video. I think that's always a little awkward, just to pray in a recorded video and ask you to pray with me. But I'm gonna pray after I finish this video in just a moment here, and I want to encourage you to do the same. Let's pray for God to receive the glory in the midst of this pandemic. Let's pray that God would give us wisdom to do things the way that would best honor him and build up his church. Let's pray that we would grow closer to God, and let's pray that God's church would be strengthened. Let's pray for his will to be done, and for us to be content in his will being done, even if we don't fully understand it. May God have mercy on us. May God help us. May God be glorified in our lives. Thanks for watching. Have a great day. God bless you.